So I just want to ask you a couple of questions about your background and what brought you into producing, and so that we get a little sense of what it is that people that come along to the course might learn.
Like, there are so many types of producers. There's creative producers, line producers, producers, executive producers, and we could get into the minutiae of what all of these things are. But ultimately, a bit like that, I don't think there's any one route to doing it.
Yes.
And for me, I guess it was, if it's a job worth doing, it's a job worth doing as well as you can.
Exactly.
And when you're open to that, and you're open to learning from other people, and I had some amazing mentors in my early days. Special shout out to Adele McGill and to Kerry Woods from Tinderbox. Adele had been my predecessor at Prime Cut, without whom there's no way I'd be doing this conversation right now, you know. But yeah, so that's my background. It was like there was a lot of different routes and not being afraid to try out different things.
Exactly.
But at least I got to work in the arts, and specifically in theatre for a lot of it, and tell stories, which I think was the original passion behind all of it.
Exactly. And you've touched on it just there, and I've sort of thought a little bit about it myself as well. That there's that question, what exactly is a producer and what does a producer do? Because I know that for a while within theatre companies, there wasn't actually the term producer. There would have been like a general manager. Quite often was the producer. Would I be right in that?
I think again, it's a fluid thing.
Yeah.
For a lot of companies, the general manager would have done the job of the producer as well as potentially the financial administration, etc. And while as a producer I have oversight on that, bookkeeping and things of that nature have never constituted part of my job, for which I'm delighted.
So if I take you back to, I suppose the question then is, how would you define it? What would you define being a producer as?
So I think it's about collaborating with artists to ensuring that they have the support and wherewithal to really maximise the production that they want to make, to achieve their vision, to realise the vision. There is a term réalisateur, I think, in France, which kind of does the producer role to a certain degree, although it's not quite that either. It largely depends on where you're at. I mean, obviously, it's a different role in a venue than it will be to an independent. A lot of it is fundraising.
Yep.
A lot of it is budgets, which we'll get to.
We'll get to.
And they're not as scary as people think. Contracts and all of that are a big role of it.
Yep.
And I have been, as I said, I had the great good fortune to be able to collaborate with artists who invited me into the room, who invited contributions from me, who have made me feel valued, which of course gives me the impetus to make it as good as I can from the other side. And that means taking some time to look at funding opportunities. I think a part of it that gets lost sometimes is the importance of networking. It's very, very important to get out there, to see other work, to meet other artists and to meet other producers. This is vital because I think sometimes it can be a very lonely world. And for very many people, it is. As I said, I've had a collaboration with Prime Cut's artistic director, Emma Jordan, for 16 years now. And it's phenomenal. Like, there's no doubt about that. And I think we have both really helped support each other and the work throughout that time. I don't think everybody's that lucky. I think sometimes people get given the job of go find a thing, go do a thing, etc. So that's where the likes of networking comes in. And there are like a lot of networks out there. Like the one I tend to sort of go to as much as I can is IETM, which is a European theatre network, although it's actually global at this point. And I have met a group of allies, collaborators, and now friends that I can pick up the phone to at any time. And that's really, really important. And it's also a very inclusive organisation. You're regularly encouraged to spot the newbie.
Yes.
And somebody did spot me wandering around aimlessly many years ago in Bergamo. Big shout out to Mary Robinson for being that angel.
Scooping you up.
Literally scooping me up, literally. And actually saying, hello, we were once you.
How can
we want to have a conversation.
That's great.
Just come and join us. And I know for a fact my practice as a producer has absolutely benefited so much by just swapping stories, being humans and realizing that you're not just there to crunch numbers or, know equity law or guidelines or whatever else, And I think from my point of view, one of the benefits of having had a less focused career in the beginning, as in like there was never this is the path to becoming a producer for me, was the fact that working as an artist, working as a facilitator, working in communities, working in all different spaces and whatever else, has given me an instinct about what it is you want to do in that job, how it is you want to work with people. You're not always going to get it right. Nobody's born an angel.
No.
And everybody makes mistakes. But it's really, I suppose, doing the best you can to realise the artist's vision and make the environment as pleasant and exciting and fun for everybody as possible, while making some money if possible as well.
Balancing that.
Yeah.
You touched on it there, and I think it's interesting. You have come into producing from having essentially been an artist to begin with, being an actor, and having that kind of route in. And some others, I suppose, like myself, came from a different perspective who didn't have what you might call a creative practice. But the professional practice of being a producer is frequently a creative role as well. So I'm interested in the balance between what feels like the kind of the creative engagement part of the role, as opposed to what we might consider to be the obviously there's a lot of creativity in balancing an excellent spreadsheet, but that balance between what's the more operational logistical and having what kind of makes your heart sing, that part of the collaboration with an artist. How does that balance out for you?
Okay, so I think it's a game of two halves to a certain degree. I mean, to begin with, when we are looking at the program, myself and Emma tend to work together very closely on what that program's going to be. Okay. And we, in addition to making touring professional theatre and sometimes theatre that doesn't tour, to artistic, like an artistic development program where you're working one-on-one with artists to create something brand new as distinct from an already established script, for instance. And then to a community engagement program. So to a lesser or greater degree, we will lead on those projects because the back catalogue of each of our careers has to do with that patently, Emma being artistic director over everything. I think it's vitally important that if we're doing a play, I've read that script, I'm doing the research around it, etc. Because as in our company at least, I would be working directly with marketers as well. Yeah. It's not just a job for them. It's something I would be involved with. I like to be in the first reading. You get a feel for the room. You get to know the actors, everybody else by name, because it's going to be a different team almost every time. Yeah. And it's important that you get to know people on a first name basis and that, that everybody realizes that while their role with the company might be temporary, it's nonetheless as valuable as any core member, and that they feel part of that shared vision and that nobody feels in any way, shape or form uncomfortable. And that's the same for everybody actually in the company, that everybody does that, know. Yeah. I would not be inflicting myself on the rehearsal room too much because people don't need oversight. People have to be let to do their jobs and do it well. And you've got to trust the process. And if you want to be in the rehearsal room inputting on a constant basis, then go and be a director. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or a dramaturg. Yeah. That's what that job is. That is not the job of the producer. But also you need to know the show inside out because there will be opening nights and there will be times you're pitching that show to potential tour presenters, etc. So you are the ambassador for that show. And I think that's how I see myself in the creative aspect of that. To a certain degree, in the early stages, potentially like a surrogate audience. As in, like, I'm at a read-through and I'm, oh my, that really works. That's brilliant. Yes. Do you know what I mean? I've thankfully never had to say that doesn't. So that's great.
Which can occasionally be the role of the producers, to come into the room and say, we need to change this, cut that, this isn't working.
It's not to say that I haven't been asked, do you think that works? And I'm not sure. But I mean, it's, that's not me going in going, what people think a producer does is like, cut that, that's going to happen. Nonsense. But, it's like you got to love the work. In the same way as, like, you there's a really famous quote by an actor, but you've got to love your character no matter how big a villain they are, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
To paraphrase it. But it's about being able to say hand on heart, and I'm not good at selling something I don't believe in. So on that level, that's what that is. But equally, on the other level, it's about knowing this is what we've got in the budget, and it doesn't matter that we need to have 10,000. We don't have £10,000 more.
Yes.
There are certain things you can gamble on because it's box office. There will be a certain amount of that, but I wouldn't advise getting too white knuckly about that because it's horrible for everybody, and especially if you get it wrong. And everybody makes mistakes. You do need, on the other hand, as well, in terms of not just budget control, but to be absolutely clear and aware contractually what you can expect from people, what you can ask of people, to understand why equity, their guidelines are the way they are. That's not a burden. That is about protecting everybody and ensuring everybody has the same rights. And I firmly do believe that. And also to ensure that where you're working is aligned with the values that you want in the company, so that, it may be that you're in a different culture where different hours or different customs are in place, and we somehow have to try and meet in the middle and find something that works for everybody. So there are two sides to it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that it's probably slightly different for every producer what feeds them creatively.
Yes.
But there is most certainly that sense that there needs to be a joy and a passion for the process, for the piece that you're producing. Yeah, as you say, you need to be able to love it, to be able to fight for it and advocate for it, and to,
And I also think it's really important that you are perceived to be an equal part of that company. Of course, there are certain things where the buck stops with me. Of course there are. But I don't believe in hierarchies. Theatre is absolutely the most collective art form. It really is, just in terms of the amount of artistic disciplines that come together to make any one theatre show. There are people who would argue with me, and that's fair enough. That's just how I'm seeing it. But and it's about knowing that every person that's in that room with you is an expert in their own fields. Unless obviously you've got a student placement or an intern or something. But by the same token, you were once that person and you were there to learn. So therefore, it's on a producer not to be ignoring those people, but also to try and help out with the mentorship of that in whatever way they can, in as much as it's welcome.
Producing a show, I would sit in an audience frequently and watch a show and just think, how on earth did they make this happen? And I was going to ask you, if you had that sort of aha moment whenever you were producing, sort of in your earlier career, where you thought, this is the thing that I need to do to kind of get the show over the line, or this is the crux of it. But whenever we were chatting earlier, you had said actually it's almost a case of saying that you had moments where you realised, oh no, that's not the thing to do.
Oh God, yeah, of course, of course. Sometimes it's that, and there have been times that I've come off work going, well, I'll not be doing that again. And it's actually very. I'm a firm believer in taking a long hard look at yourself and going, I was wrong. That was not a good idea. I'm also a firm believer in apologising to people when you do that, because I think there's a bit of strength in that rather than anything else.
I totally agree.
I think one of the most important things about getting any show over the line is not being afraid to ask for help. You're not Superman or Superwoman or super anything. It's like
you don't have all the answers all the time,
and you're not the Fort Knox of all knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. It is about asking for help. It is about going, this isn't working. How do we turn this around? But it's also about realizing that it's not the end of the world. That everybody can make mistakes. There's things sometimes do have to, sometimes there's a change of personnel. Sometimes the show will go in a completely different direction to what you'd anticipated. Sometimes somebody doesn't like the work and they come back to you and they're vicious, and you know what? They've every right to be if they didn't like it. They probably paid a lot of money to go out and see that, and maybe got a babysitter or a taxi. So it had better be good, but you're not going to please people all of the time. And especially if you're going to make work that is something that's really true to your convictions. If you're making work that pleases everybody all of the time, I don't think you're touching anything. But that's, for me, a personal thing.
Or if it pleases, it might be so bland that it's more just hasn't.
That's what I mean.
Hasn't offended.
Yeah, it's not really
So it's
touching.
not-
Yeah. There's no
It's
impact.
not having a reaction. It's not causing a.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, thankfully, I haven't really been hit. I mean, there have been moments where we were doing an outdoor site-specific show where there was a sort of like weirdly heavy rainstorm and the set floated away down the river.
I'm laughing, but that's not funny.
No, listen, we can all laugh about it now.
Yeah.
And there are some infamous prime cut stories that I will not bore you with at the moment, but
I'll buy you a glass of wine later. We'll talk about those another time.
up for that. But the point about it is nobody died. Nobody got massively injured, for the most part. And, you know, it's about, I suppose, really, there's always risks. In anything worth doing, there's always risks. And it's about knowing how to manage that. But the big one for me is asking for help. Always ask for help.
And you might say, if you're not making mistakes, you're maybe not even taking risks. There has to be.
You're certainly not evolving.
That allowance to fail at things, to get things wrong.
Yeah.
You know, in an environment where you're not going to sink the company, but where you're allowed to change your mind, you know, be able to not just stick to a particular course of action that, or a particular route forward that you decided in the beginning was the thing to do, but being able to be flexible and take note of what's going on and to allow things to change or move in a different direction.
And also to be able to say no.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things that look like a great opportunity, when you really look at them, might not be, or potentially have more capability for damage or overwork or overstress than what the perceived benefit might be.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Exactly.
But yeah, so it's, I think that's about it,
So, bearing in mind, overwork and overstress.
There's a lot of it going around.
Yeah, there's a lot of it going around, and it's an incredible effort to get a show on the stage and to keep it up there. And especially, as you said, you know, in the current climate, let's just call it. So, how do you manage to try and keep a team under a lot of pressure, kind of happy and comfortable? Because a lot of producing is around, and you're going to talk about this in the course, I think it's around management. It's about the people, everybody that you bring together, being responsible for the well-being of those people.
Well, I'm not entirely certain you can ensure that everybody is happy and comfortable all the time. I don't think any manager in any career, in any part of the world can ever say that. And if they can, could you please give me a TED talk, because I'd really love that. I think it's about acknowledging that people can be stressed and feeling a little flaily or have overcommitted. And we are all, I mean, I'm certainly absolutely guilty of and I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this. There's no hours in the day. Trying as much as possible to acknowledge that this is going to happen sometimes, not always, but sometimes it might. And that can be for any one of a variety of reasons, like a lot of which will be outside people's control. I think as a producer, I mean, there have been many, many occasions where I've just jumped in and gone, what can I do? How can I help? Right? Don't just ask for help, offer help.
Yeah. That's nice. Yeah.
And try and listen. Try and listen to what people are saying and where we can. I mean, I'm a big believer in hear the problem, find the solution.
Yeah.
Rather than just talk and tell somebody why they have to suck it up, because nobody should have to. That's not unless it's something like the colour of the paint on the walls that I can't really do anything about right now. But and I know that's very facetious, but it's in as much, I suppose, just empathy. In as much as anybody can. Under what can be quite stressful conditions, but
just try to be decent to each other.
Just try to be decent to each other, and remember, it's not brain surgery.
Yeah, that's true. I know. Again, you referred to it very briefly earlier, but I think a lot of people that go into producing, or maybe, you know, the folks that are going to come in the course with you, they will potentially be artists initially or predominantly, and they're interested in producing a show. They've got an idea. They've maybe got some people together. And the thing that will probably be causing the most anxiety is the B word. How do we cope with budgets?
The first and foremost thing, and I say this all the time, I'm actually kind of probably boring people by saying it now, is everybody does budgets all the time. Every time you go to Tesco, you're working with a budget. Every time you pay your rent or your bills or whatever else, every time you get a bit of money into your bank account, you're working with a budget because it's income and expenditure. And when you start to see it that way,
yes,
then it stops being as scary. And yes, there are things. There are things like, working out holiday pay rates and stuff like that. This is why I don't do the finances, because I don't want to have to do all of this. We have wonderful Lorraine McBurty who works with us, who does all of that, and that's great. So I set a budget, yes, but in the spending of it, I'm the person who authorises the spend, as distinct from the bookkeeping. And bookkeeping and budgets are entirely different beasts, entirely. With the budget, I think the biggest, most common mistake people make if they're not on a salary is forgetting to put in their own time.
Okay.
The amount of times I've spoken to artists going, but what about your hours?
Yes.
And especially when it comes to something that's like an independent artist project grant, and they're promising the world like it's going to be like a shared reading and and 6 actors, etc., and it's like it's £2,000, and you're going, it's not possible, right? But also you will work with funders, and you need to work with them, not for them. That's for real. We're all part of an ecology, and I genuinely, honestly think it's a very rare funder that wouldn't get this. Most people are very sympathetic. Most have actually been artists themselves or have been in somehow, shape or form part of that sector. And they're human beings too. And we all exist as part of a much big, wider environment. And it's about actually getting that into place. So for me, it's about, this is where you do need to know your equity stuff. You do need to know, it's one thing getting some friends around for a development and people saying like, I'll take 20 quid for that or whatever. That's entirely different. Yeah. That's an entirely different thing. But if you're looking at doing this professionally and whatever else, you should try and meet stuff as much as you can and tailor what you have to the amount that you have. Tailoring is huge in this. There's no big specific thing on how to do a successful budget for a production or a development or whatever else. This is what you've got. What can you do with that? And if there's a shortfall, how do you make the argument to get more money to cover that?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's what's missing is the biggest argument for you to get more than what's actually there. So it's about how you strategically look at a thing and pay yourself and pay the artists. Pay the artists. Just saying.
We're just going to put that on a T-shirt.
Pay the artists. And also, but like everybody, this nonsense of it looking good on your CV.
I know. I think we've moved on, right?
Oh, we really haven't.
Oh, dear.
It's good on your CV. It builds up your practice. It's this, it's that, it's the other. And I know it's really easy for me to say this from a salaried position in a core-funded organisation, but I'm not saying give people salaries of 40 or 50 grand. God be with the days. But where possible, it is the greatest way of saying your work has value to somebody. Compliments are one thing, but keeping a roof over your head's a different ballgame.
It's very important.
So it's that for me is what it is like just pay people for their time.
So if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a wee bit about your background, because I know you've had an interesting route into producing, and I think that's probably true for quite a lot of people.
I think it is. I think there are many brilliant courses on producing that are happening right now, but that wasn't necessarily always the case, or maybe people weren't in a position to take up those opportunities. Certainly that was my story. In fact, actually, I think if anybody had told me as a teenager or even through my degree years that I would be a producer, I would have laughed them out of it.
You started in acting, right?
I did, yeah. So I have a degree in theatre studies from Ulster University. And obviously, acting was the goal. I think it is for a lot of young people, especially a lot of young women at the time, where I don't think there was a huge amount of female producers. Of course, there were absolute luminaries like people like Anne Clark and and that, but it wouldn't have been, at least in my immediate knowledge, and it wouldn't have been a career path that I would have thought, because for me, I suppose I thought a lot of it was about math and project management and stuff I genuinely didn't see myself good at.
Fair.
And I do think a lot of that has to do with the way society, I'm not going to say treated women, but certainly led you to believe
Yes.
that this was maybe a job for a man.
Yeah.
That was my experience, not everybody's, as I said. I did a bit of performance, but I always had other little things on the go. Workshop facilitation, a bit of teaching, especially with Belfast Institute of Performing Arts, where I worked at the Centre for Performing Arts for a while. And little by little, a certain level of administration crept into my job. Not least when I became a mother.
Okay.
And it became a thing that a more flexible lifestyle, as in being able to go away and do an event somewhere or tour somewhere, wasn't really an option anymore because I had a very small child. And as they could, not that it's any of her responsibility whatsoever, I might add, but especially when it comes to school stuff where things are a bit more structured. I did a stint at the Lyric Theatre in the Education and Outreach Department, which was an incredible learning curve, no doubt about that. A lot of freelance work, and bit by bit I found myself beginning to sort of produce by default, putting budgets together for much smaller projects, obviously, a lot of community access and engagement projects. There would have been a lot of artistic facilitation that would have certainly defined what I was doing at the time.
So it was kind of a cross between, it wasn't what I would maybe consider to be like that purely producing side of things.
No, not at all. I've always been very front facing with it. And even now, even with PrimeCut, where I've had the great good luck and opportunity to work in an incredibly organic environment where my input has been welcomed and really, for me, it's just been a really great experience to work with some fantastic actors over the years and artists over the years. And just to have your opinion valued is an amazing thing. But more of that later. I mean, I did a stint at Belfast City Council in the Culture and Arts Department as well. And then the job at PrimeCut came up. And I do remember going, I want this job, but am I a producer? And there was a whole lot of imposter syndrome about it. To be fair, I hadn't really produced actual theatre on a stage. But God bless them, they took a punt on me. And I've been there since 2008. And it's been a really, really, 2009. My apologies. It's been an amazing journey.
Kind of to round up, I guess. Folks are going to be coming along to the course with you and they're going to be spending 3 days. They may be, as I think anybody would be that's looking at potentially producing their first show, the first production, first piece of work, might come in a little bit overwhelmed. What will you do to support them through that so that when they leave after the 3rd day of the course that they're feeling comforted and feeling confident in going forward to produce their work?
I suppose the approach I would take, and I think I want to take, is the same one as I would do with potentially when we're looking at the very first, how do you first produce a big show? And it starts with, first of all, you get to know every constituent part. So I want to get to know the people first and figure out what it is that they want to know and to learn. And to then tailor the approach. And just because you're not, say somebody wants to produce something that's about something that's site specific and another person is a stand-up show in a theatre or whatever, we can still learn from each other. There are going to be things that you'll not have thought of. And it's how I've always learned as well. I mean, I've learned from dance, from circus, from music, so much. And it's stuff I wouldn't have known I needed to learn until I was actually open to hearing it. I think the approach is one step at a time. Don't look at the big thing, right? That will scare anybody senseless.
Eat the elephant
it's
one
just
bite at a time.
One bite at a time, absolutely. So we'll be taking a look at all the various things I've talked about, from contracts to fundraising to budgets, breaking them down, how you apply them in different ways, how they might be applied to somebody's specific project, and where possible, a little bit of peer mentoring as well as everything else, and starting to build a little network
Nice.
that can then feed into the bigger ones and the rest. And also just introduction to some of the ecology in this place and the wider island, if that's useful. But mostly just making sure that, first of all, like, obviously I know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to be super prescriptive because I need to be able to respond to the participants and hopefully give them what they need.
And some of that fear around kind of the process will be demystified, and hopefully, it'll be a lovely opportunity for people to kind of get a better understanding of the building blocks and, as you say yourself, the steps.
And, you will always have white knuckle moments. You will always have moments where you're going, what am I doing?
Sure.
Like, why?
Would it be any crack if there weren't?
But you will also have moments of it just feels like nothing else on earth, with an amazing, wonderful group of people that you've had the great privilege to work with and sometimes become very good friends with. It's a wonderful career. It's a challenging career, but it's one absolutely that I've enjoyed every day of.
On that note, thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
And we look forward to seeing you next Saturday.
See you then.
Thank you.